Hey everybody, it's Sid from Cool Moviegram, your source for everything about cool film. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and also let me know what you think of my other content. And yeah, I know it's been a while since I've actually released my last video. Promise to be more consistent with my uploads, but unfortunately it's been really difficult, especially when you've got like a busy life and a hectic schedule with work and everything else getting in the way as well. But then of course this month I'm going to be trying to at least get around about 4 or so videos out, or a video each week in regards to the whole Shaw Brothers thing, because of course happy Shawtember. Yep. So today's going to be like, these videos are going to be themed around Shaw Brothers. Some of them are going to be reviews of the films that I've actually got in my collection, and also just like some lists and just kind of like just simple discussions. And today, of course, I'm just going to be going through favorite of my 10 favorite fights from like Shaw Brothers films. Now there's loads of fights that I had to kind of narrow down and just pick. I thought let's just pick 10 of the ones that I would actually I would gladly kind of like include in my list. Now again, this is not an official rating, or it's not like, some people might rate other fights in a different order, but I'm just kind of like just going off my own kind of like just off the top of the dome, and I've actually kind of like just compiled a list of these 10 fights. And without further ado, hey, why not? Let's just let's get into this. Number 10, we have David Chang versus Lau Kar-wing in Shaolin Mantis, which is directed by Lau Kar-leung from 1978. Now, this is the final fight where after David Chang's character, who kind of like gets beaten, his wife gets killed, and also he kind of like becomes a recluse, and he just kind of like develops the Mantis style of kung fu just to go get revenge on his father-in-law, who's like also like a Ming rebel, and he was actually sent there undercover, but then things kind of happened where he wasn't able. I don't want to spoil the movie that much for those who haven't seen it, but eventually when he gets beaten first and his wife gets killed, he decides to come back after learning or developing, should I say, the Mantis kung fu style. The film itself doesn't have anything to do with the Shaolin Temple, but I don't know why they call it Shaolin Mantis. I thought the American title, Deadly Mantis, was actually a lot more apt and suited. But this end fight, it was actually really cool because, Lau Kar-wing being the younger brother of Lau Kar-leung, who's, both of them expert martial artists, and, the fact is David Chang had actually learned the Mantis style of kung fu, and he kind of like, was really apt at it, and they were able to actually capture this end fight scene where it kind of like, you see them kind of throw these shapes and like using kind of like different kind of things as well. Like there's even like a kind of like a smoking pipe used as a weapon, which was actually really kind of like a very effective way of using it. And they kind of it was again captured with long takes, and even David Chang, who's kind of, even at that time, he had been at Shaw Brothers. He had left them for a short period to kind of like work in like Taiwan in some independent movies, along with some other Shaw Brothers stars. But then he kind of came back, and then it's one of the films that he did when he did return to Shaw, and getting to work with someone like Lau Kar-leung, when his usual collaborators has been Chang Che, and. Yeah, this was one that paid off, and like it's kind of like has a very bloody kind of ending, and like it was really out there, but at the same time it captures the intricacies of like kung fu movements that you could only see Lau Kar-leung has actually done, as you probably must have if you've seen his other kind of like his filmography. But definitely a fight that kind of stuck with me, and it really kind of stands out. Number 9 is Chen Kun-tai as Ma Yong-chen versus the Axe Gang. which is from Boxer from Shawtember, a 1972 film directed by Chung Che and Pao Shu Lee. Yeah, I mean, this film, again, it's a very kind of like rise to the top and kind of like, you know, fall from grace kind of movie. Very kind of in the veins of like of Scarface and you know, it's those kind of like move, or even Julius Caesar in a way. Like, it's the whole story of like a man who kind of works his way up from the bottom of like of society to kind of become like a really kind of well-known gang boss. And kind of like, you know, with the ability of his kind of his kung fu and his skills, which is kind of based off like a real character, a real person that was actually in Shanghai, who was from Shawtember. And yeah, in this film, of course, he's out to get revenge, but then he's actually set up by the aforementioned Axe Gang. And, you know, he's bloodied, and he's literally just kind of goes through all of the bad guys, like literally just kind of like, you know, he's got an axe stuck in his abdomen over here, and he's kind of like, you know, bleeding, but he kind of just uses like his shirt or something just to kind of wrap it up, and then he's just kind of like just taking them all down. All these guys, like bad guys dressed in black with pickaxes, and you know, just tearing this whole restaurant apart, and it's just absolute carnage. This film is like a lot of kind of like fake kind of bright red blood used all over, and it's just, you know, the fact is that it's like the martial arts. I mean, at that time the choreography hadn't really developed as much, because we just only had Bruce Lee break into the mold with the Big Boss the year before, and he also in the same year as Boxer from Shawtember, the Fist of Fury, which was actually the biggest like movie of that year, I believe. But this was kind of like their way of like, let's just use an actual real martial artist who was like an Asian champion, which was Young Auntie, who had actually kind of then moved into making movies, and this was his kind of breakthrough role. And, you know, it was just kind of like really kind of like it's just carnage. It was like very much like a basher. I mean, I think the Lowe brothers were the actual choreographers on this. But it was very much, this film was like a basher movie. It was just like kind of like, just the sound effects are really loud, and it's just like just fully just kind of like lots of cuts, lots of just hacking, and the moves are just kind of there just to kind of like make him look like he's just fighting for his life and looking to take down his enemies. And, you know, this film has had a lot of influence, especially this one particular fight scene, especially when you see films like the finale of Kung Fu Hustle, that, you know, a lot of it was inspired by the Boxer from Shawtember. Like, we had the Axe Gang, and you know, and them kind of like going through these like him going through that one part where I think in Kung Fu Hustle, when he's actually going through like this kind of like narrow kind of corridor through his kind of like through this kind of the apartment complex, which is the Pigsty Alley, but then over here in the restaurant, you kind of see him going along across like a balcony, just kind of like smacking up everyone, slashing through everyone, beating everyone up, killing them with his punches and everything. Yeah, it was pretty much a very big influence on me, even in Ryo Seung-won's 2007 film City of Violence, which was pretty much owed a lot to Boxer from Shawtember. I mean, it was a very influential fight, but then it's the physical violence that just made it more than just the choreography. It's just the setup, and like, it was the sheer energy of Young Auntie that just makes this scene just like, knowing that it has a very tragic ending, but it's just kind of so satisfying to watch at the same time, because it's so theatrical, so kind of like just blood-soaked, and absolute kind of like brilliance in terms of like filmmaking. Number 8 is The Final Payback, which is like Austin Hawaii, Hao Chiu-sing, and versus like Kwon Fung in 5 Super Fighters. Keep forgetting the other guy's name, should have wrote it down, but yeah, and which is directed by Lo Ma from 1978. And again, this was one of the films that was made after the success of films like Snake and Eagle, Shadow, and Drunken Master, which kind of capitalized on the whole kung fu comedy phase that was kind of like becoming the next big thing, where Jackie Chan had kind of like reached superstardom, and Shaw Brothers, like many others, were trying to capitalize on this success. The fact that they were using a lot of these kind of like very acrobatic kind of performers who had a lot of kind of like athletic abilities, acrobatic abilities, doing these long takes and like really fast movements and everything. And it's just kind of really cool to see how like these guys who get beaten up by the villain who wears a black cape played by Kung Fu, who goes around as someone who corrects bad Kung Fu. And you know, they kind of like take a beating, but then each of the students go off to actually learn a different style of Kung Fu, become really good, and then get back. And a very basic storyline, but the fights were just absolutely incredible. The training scenes are good, but this end fight is just very satisfying because you get to see that they're actually having fun. Like, you know, there's a lot of kind of like slapstick comedy, but it kind of just blends in so well. And it kind of like shows the acrobatic abilities, the fighting ability of these young guys. Oh, I took the lights on there, sorry. But then, you know, it's just kind of like it's really, again, very kind of, the choreography is like very kind of outlandish, very creative. And also the fact that you got those long takes, you get to see each of the acrobatic movements of the actual fighters and the performers, and it's captured pretty well, even with the use of music, and everything's actually just done perfectly. Okay, number 7 is Lo Ka Lung Seo Ho versus Lo Li in Mad Monkey Kung Fu. Again, this is another one I would say probably one of like the better one of the best Kung Fu movies, I would say, that Lo Ka Lung had directed and starred in himself. And this end fight, again, it just kind of captures a lot of the great kind of the difficulty of like the whole kind of the monkey Kung Fu style, which again is done with like just sheer like energy, and the choreography again done great with like long takes. I mean, Lo Li is just perfect as like this kind of like really scummy bad guy, and Lo Ka Lung's out for revenge with his new student Seo Ho, and you know, how they both kind of like perfected the monkey style, and they're just out to get like revenge on this person because of like what's happened with his sister. Won't go into that detail, but then again, it just shows how great these guys were like at like just capturing that essence of like martial arts choreography. And you know, Lo Ka Lung's influence has kind of been seen over the years. And even Seo Ho, who kind of I thought was relegated to very small roles when he kind of like left after Shaw Brothers kind of like disbanded from filmmaking. He just wasn't really given the roles that he deserved. I mean, he was a really kind of talented performer. Again, someone who could do great acrobatic abilities. He was a great stuntman, great fighter. And yeah, it was just a shame. It was just a shame to kind of see that he didn't really do much. But again, this end fight itself, again, it had that kind of perfect balance of like humor and you know, kind of like just the brutality of like martial arts at the same time. It just kind of blended everything perfectly, and you know, which, you know, made it one of those kind of standout movies where even when Shaw Brothers films weren't really that kind of like readily available in the UK, especially. I mean, Mad Monkey Kung Fu was one of those titles that kind of stood out because of like just how great the actual insane the actual choreography in the film was. Number 6, now it's the Venom Mob versus Chen Kun Tai and Lu Feng in Crippled Avengers 1978 Changche, which is also known as Return of the Five Deadly Venoms, of course, where each of the heroes have all been kind of crippled. One has lost his sight, one has lost his hearing, one's become really mad, one's lost his legs. They're all kind of like eventually kind of develop like kung fu and all, and become a team and be able to actually go get revenge against a really kind of like powerful just a powerful arrogant martial arts once a hero who's kind of like gone mad and just, you know, ruins these people's lives, and they just come back to get revenge on him and his son. And again, this is one of the fights that, I mean, if I had to use the Venom Mob, I probably would have made it a top 10 scenes from just their fight scenes themselves, because their fight scenes are just absolutely insane, incredible, full of like absolute carnage and just physicality. It was just really great. But then, you know, I thought this is one of the ones that kind of always does stand out because of just the kind of how a lot of these characters are just really kind of like, because they're disadvantaged because of their condition, but the fact that they kind of take down the bad guy with their abilities, it just kind of makes it more satisfying, especially with Chang Sheng, who does a lot of his acrobatics are just absolutely just fascinating to watch. And the fact that it was done with like really long takes, and you know, it's just the fact that it's the inventiveness in the choreography when it comes to the like especially in Crippled Avengers, to this fight. It was just really fascinating to watch, because this was pretty much like something that they were trying to kind of keep like the martial arts movies alive, which to an effect it has kind of remained as something that's memorable and definitely worth a rewatch again and again. Chen Kuntai, who's normally was at one point just a kind of, well, a really kind of very reliable leading man for the shows, but then he kind of like left and came back and decided to kind of like take more character roles and even play like play villainous roles as well. He's a very effective bad guy, and again is a very kind of like very more than just capable martial artist. And you know, it's just again a really kind of like one of those cult classic martial arts movies, just full of like insanity. But the end fight again, it's just, you know, just shows how kind of unique the Venom Mob themselves were as a team. They were just absolutely kind of like a very talented bunch of individuals. Number 5, we have another Venom Mob Showdown, which is well, the casino showdown in where the Venom Mob faces off against Wang Lik and Quan Fung in 10 Tigers from Kwantung, which is a 1980 film directed by Chang Cheh. And yeah, I mean, this was like pretty much like an all-star film where he had like his regulars like T Lung and even Fu Xing were in this movie for the first half, and then he also had like the Venom Mob and a bunch of new guys, including at that time you had people like Chin Seo Ho and a few of the other guys who kind of, I just can't remember their names. And yeah, this is where they kind of like eventually have like an end fight, which what's great about this is just some of like the fight in this actual casino at the end, it just goes really hard. It just goes absolutely insane. I mean, you got great use of like weapons and like characters using like pieces of furniture in the actual casino, like stools, you know, bouncing off tables and like just like, and swords and spears and God knows what. It's just absolute carnage, especially when Liu Feng, who for once is actually playing a good guy on a very rare occasion, he actually just goes in and just do these somersaults and such. And him and Philip Kwok Choi decide to kind of like join the fight at the end as old men, but then it's just there. It's just absolutely right out there when you come to think of just the most batshit crazy, insane fight scenes. You know, especially showing the acrobatic abilities of the performers and like the long takes that they were able to do again, and even just the way that they actually get rid of the final bad guy is just an absolute, you know, it's pretty much not as gruesome as like Story of Ricky or anything like that, but this was just kind of like, wow, you know, this is just like, seriously, they actually put that on film and you think, wow, those who know what I'm talking about, you know, when you're hanging upside down, when the bad guy's hanging upside down, and the way it goes at the end is just like, wow, really, yeah, that's what they actually did. Number 4, I mean, this one can be interchangeable from like, you know, these next like fight scenes, I could say they could go in any order. Yeah, just to say. So this is not a kind of definitive list again. Number 4 is Gordon Liu versus Johnny Wang Wei in Martial Club 1981, directed by Lo Ka-leung. And yeah, it was like pretty much, it was quite, you know, an odd kind of like an odd thing to see Wang Wei playing like not someone who's not actually a bad guy. It's just someone who's testing the kung fu. But it's just, again, how him, Gordon Liu, who's playing Wong Fei Hung. I mean, I did actually review this film on my channel before. Sorry for plugging that again. Yeah, it's just the way it kind of starts off with him kind of just testing his kung fu, and then they eventually go into this kind of like this narrow kind of way, alleyway of like little roads and whatnot, just passages, and they're just kind of like literally just using actual kind of kung fu shapes and whatnot, and like the takes, just the music and everything, especially how like some of the corridors go, you know, some of the passages go much more narrow, and how they kind of adapt their style in order to actually kind of like, you know, beat the other person. But it's all done in a way of like pure martial arts respect, which is fantastic. And you know, they just fully go on at it, but they're not with the intention of trying to kill the other person, but like it is, especially in most of the Shaw Brothers films. But this is just to kind of like just up the next man, using nothing but the actual using their kung fu. And it just shows pure like martial artistry, especially in the you know, in just the intricacies of their movements. Again, it's just, I know I'm using that word quite a lot, but then that's just what made the Lo Ka-leung kind of like style of fighting just that appealing to watch, and even to this day it just looks really good. Okay, number 3 is Lo Ka-leung versus Lau Ka-wing in The Legendary Weapons of China from 1982, directed by Lo Ka-leung again, where you see these two brothers who kind of like, you know, as per their family tradition, you know, kind of like literally have to have a fight to the death, and they just have all these weapons, every single weapon kind of like they could think of in like Chinese martial arts, just literally surrounding them, and they each kind of like show each of the skills on each of the weapons, like the different techniques and the movements. And you know, again, both of these Lau brothers just absolutely kind of like just nail it in terms of like just the long takes, and like the intricacies of the movements, and like the careful choreography, and like just the way that the takes are just kind of like, you know, the camera captures these movements with the full kind of like just the full movement, nothing kind of added onto it, without any CGI or anything like that, but then no trickery, but it's just a pure martial arts skill. And it's a treat to watch every time. It's just that one scene, it's just like you know, it's just pure like kung fu goodness, definitely. Number 2 is Lau Ka-leung versus Johnny Wang Wei in the 1978 My Young Auntie, which is also directed by Lau Ka-leung, but of course him playing like the like a more of like a supporting role, but he kind of like ends up fighting with Johnny Wang Wei at the end. Again, it just, the both of them, just a great fight scene, just because of the whole kind of like the intricacies kind of shown in the kung fu. And Johnny Wang Wei was definitely one of my favorite bad guys, especially when it comes to the Shaw Brothers films. He just had the kind of menace about him, and you know, he had great skills to back it up as well, and he had, you know, really good kind of like flexibility, especially with his kicks, and you know, it's just, you know, he just kind of had this kind of great presence as a bad guy, which you know, it's just very fitting. And you know, the fact that, you know, to see these two guys just go at it, and like you know, it's I mean, it's just hard to kind of explain, man. It's just so great to watch. Probably is one of the saving graces of that film, but overall it was just, again, a really kind of like great kind of martial arts skill. The fact just shows that these two guys were really like that great at martial arts, considering that they were doing this without doubles, without without quick cuts and takes. They were mixed in with like that whole MTV kind of thing that you see in modern day fight scenes. None of that at all, but it's just kind of like just purely captured the great martial art. And number one, my final pick of this is going to be the Gordon Liu versus Philip Cole in 8-diagram pole fighter. I mean, it's definitely, I think it's in one of my top 5 fight scenes of all time, or top 10 fight scenes of all time. I do one of my videos, and I remember talking about this video itself, where of course you see him kind of go ahead against like the head martial arts instructor played by Philip Cole, and Gordon Liu wants to go and save his sister from the bad guys, and they have this kind of amazing pole fight. You know, in like this, in a part of the temple where you see him kind of like using like, you know, the pole and great kind of like, you know, with great techniques, just the music, the choreography and everything put together. I mean, just definitely is one of my all-time favorite fight scenes. And Gordon Liu again was a great martial arts performer. Again, Lau Kar-leung was a great director. I mean, this is one of like the last like great films that he had actually directed, and you know, definitely probably one of my all-time favorite kung fu movies ever made as well. And just this fights, again, it always stands out. Even all the other fight scenes in this film are great kind of standout scenes, and it's just because of the sheer brutality that's kind of shown, and as well as the martial artistry and the skills of each of the actual performers is just really good. And the late Philip Cole again was a great performer who kind of like ended up making a name for himself, working outside the Shaw Brothers with like people like Sammo Hung, working with his stunt crew on several of his films, and you know, and also kind of like working with other like modern day 80s actioners. And definitely he was a great kind of like character actor at the same time, but then he also had a great martial arts ability, and I would definitely say, I mean, this is probably one of my favorite Shaw Brothers fight scenes. Right, well, yeah, that was a rundown of like 10 more. I mean, there was many that I wanted to kind of keep, especially with the Venom Mob. I mean, Invincible Shaolin's ending was really cool too. I mean, very gnarly, kind of like kind of moved by was it Lo Ming? He just did some absolute crazy kind of like, oh yeah, but it's just so like, wow. It's just so kind of like just insane. But then I would say definitely these are like my 10 picks, I would say, of like great Shaw Brothers fight scenes. But yeah, I mean, let me know, what are your favorite ones? Which ones did I miss out that you would put? I mean, everyone's got a different list, just like me. I know my list ain't going to be the same as yours, but you guys can always let me know which ones you would put in there and how you would rank them. But again, like I said, the first 4, they could be interchangeable in any way. I mean, I just think these are the ones that I kind of like have always stuck out to me at one point. But yeah, definitely, and I'll be coming back with more stuff, and I want you to check out my channel and subscribe. Thank you.